You're probably thinking, there's no way I trust car dealerships. And you're not alone in assuming that. But obviously, to evolve and to continue their business model, they have to rethink how they're doing business today. Yes, the future and evolution of the car market is changing. So is the dealership model. And we've seen manufacturers like Tesla proving that out. With technology being a major factor and consumers being able to shop online, what about the servicing part of buying a vehicle online? There's a lot to consider with technology, innovation, and of course, just the general consensus that people have in that they don't generally trust car dealers. In many cases, there's good reason for it. In other cases, not as much. But one thing is for sure, there definitely is going to be an evolution and a changing of the dealership model. There's been lots of discussion about it in the recent past. As a person in the automotive industry, I myself have worked for car dealers. I've worked in the wrenching business, selling cars, fixing cars. I've been around cars virtually my entire life, and I've personally owned dozens of cars myself. I'm very well versed in the idea of what I like to see when I walk into a dealership, how I like to be treated, and what I actually expect from service. Now, a lot of us have similar ideas. Some want more hands-on, and some people want less. At the end of the day, we all want to go in and have a great experience where we don't feel like we're getting ripped off, but we ultimately want to get a good deal, get a good quality product, and know that we're going to be looked after at the service counter. So I'm going to take this from the top, and I've made a great summary of some key items as to what I truly believe we have to be thinking about as the future for car dealerships and what we can actually anticipate. We'll take this from the top, shall we? So now it's quite clear we're in the digital world, and I want to take the top key component to talk about first, and it's the digital showroom. Now, obviously, technology is playing a major factor, and it's easy to just with the stroke of a button and a swipe of the keyboard that you're able to get on to your next car buying experience. But there's three key elements within that we need to talk about. The impact of online car buying, how dealerships are also adapting to these online purchasing experience, and the absolute growing importance of the customer review experience as well. So firstly, we're talking about what does that impact look like for the buyers? Buyers engaging in the digital platforms, online purchasing. We're seeing much more of this with companies like Carvana and Vroom. They're all playing a major part in how buyers are buying cars these days. We know during the vid how things were looking. A lot of people had to stay home. They had to start adapting. People start to buy off their cell phones. Amazon never saw such success as they did then. But now we're also seeing companies like Hyundai getting involved with online purchasing direct from the manufacturer. Tesla's been doing it as well. And it really doesn't take much more than your simple little cell phone like this and a little bit of screen time, and you can buy your next car. And so ultimately, with car companies like Carvana, they're directly influencing the way a lot of customers are buying their cars today. It's making it ultra convenient. You don't have to engage with a lot of these shady practices that we read about so often with a lot of car sellers and dealers. And people just love to trust. They like to look at the numbers. They're able to shop around, and it even saves them time and money on gas and the efforts to go out there and shop around and try different things. So it represents a huge win for a lot of buyers looking for their next car, being able to go to those go-tos like Carvana and Vroom, just to be able to shop, compare, and pick up their next new car purchase. The second point to that is, how are dealerships adapting to this digital online buying? Well, I'll tell you right now, I've seen locally a lot of dealers start moving and they start getting their salespeople doing walkarounds, doing car reviews of specific used cars they might have in actually within their inventory. They actually walk around and show and feature some of their new vehicles. And a lot of these localized dealerships are doing things to adapt, to play to the newer upcoming digital platforms. And they're actually showing videos. You'll see a lot of these videos on YouTube. You see these videos everywhere. And a lot of these dealerships are literally playing to the digital lovers, the new buyers, the new generations that are typically more purchasing on their cell phones and their computers. And so ultimately the dealerships are getting on board, and they're having to. They're having to pitch a lot of their ads online. They're engaging a lot of the marketing tactics via a lot of the classifieds, and they're creating their own videos to feature some of their finer products or some of their big sales. So they're having to fight back with this idea that people are going online for their purchasing. They have to have a representation. They have to have a presence online if they want to be relevant in today's industry. If they're not present in today's digital industry, they're going to fail and they're missing a huge opportunity. The third most important part of the digital buying experience is what you're getting from reviews. That's right, customers always like to leave reviews. I did some shopping. A couple of years ago, I took a trip to Europe and we were looking at some B&Bs and we were wondering, well, which one's good, which one's bad? And we looked around, and the first thing we do is you can judge by, how many stars the ratings of each one of these hotels or facilities or homes are. But at the end of the day, you don't really know unless you read reviews. Reviews are the most telling feature. And by reading customer reviews, the same thing goes. Dealerships, car brands, buying experiences are all available with customer reviews. Why do you think Google does reviews? You can go and study, reviews on your favorite restaurant, on your favorite car dealership, on your favorite buying experience or large retail outlet. It is there for the taking, and reviews are absolutely telling. Sure, while you have to filter it out and take it with a grain of salt, when you have a vendor selling and there's a review, 1,000 reviews, and you look at the majority of them are, a 4 out of 5 star or 4.5 out of 5 star, then that gives you a lot of warm and fuzzy. If you have a vendor that has very few reviews and the reviews maybe are lower, then you have to sort of tread very cautiously. But it gives people a buying experience that is more confidence inspiring. And so buyer reviews online is a great way to sift out some of the noise, the chaff, and able to go in there and without having to do a ton of homework, you can just read through some of the basic reviews and you can get a pretty sound understanding of which dealerships are the best, which one's the worst, the type of experience they had both at sales, service, and the types of vehicles that they're selling, whether they're good. It's very easy to find, a lot of car, business channels like Exotic Car Play Place, Easy Car Buying, for example, features a lot of very specific commentary on specific models. You want to find some of the worst cars available, some of the best cars available. Exotic Car Play Place is one of your best go-tos, or any other editorial that does feature some of these cars. It's not very difficult to find out very quickly how good a quality of one car is and the kind of problems another vehicle manufacturer is faced with, or the types of recalls you might be experiencing. So at the end of the day, digital shopping, digital browsing, and digital research is a great way for the customer to build confidence, and it's a great way to do some shopping. And literally, you don't even have to talk to many people. The second major topic is the shift to customer-centric experiences. It's not uncommon. I already spoke of this. How many people out there with one hand or no hands, can you put your hand in the air and say you trust the last dealer experience you had when you bought your last vehicle? Not many people. Most people would say the experience was marginal, dicey, questionable. And even if it went smoothly, there was always that question of, am I getting the wool pulled over my eyes? A lot of people question the integrity of car dealers and the salespeople, and really they've lost the trust, ultimately. And so the idea of getting some of that trust back and catering to the dealers, not just to the dealerships, but catering to the customers is what dealerships are most interested in now. They know they've lost trust. Even with car brands like Stellantis, we've seen that their trust levels are in the toilet, not just by the customer, but even the dealerships don't trust the manufacturers themselves. So trust is a huge issue in the automotive industry, and building that trust and dealing and curtailing to the service side to the customers to build that trust and to get them to want to come back in the door or buy their product is a huge thing that has been overlooked for many years. But there's three major components to that. Focusing on transparency, creating a more welcoming and desirable experience when you're dealing with that specific dealership, and of course the integration of technology to help along the streamlining. So it just makes life easier for you, the customer, the buyer, the seller, and everybody in between. So the first point is that transparency piece, and we know that's been a struggle. You always wonder if you're being told everything, if they're hiding some information. Maybe a used car you're buying and you're wondering if there's been accident history, flood history, and you always assume the worst now because we've had so many scams. There's so many scams you hear about every single day. You almost can't trust anybody these days. So to get transparency and have that personalized experience with a one-on-one tends to build a lot of that trust, transparency, and that feeling that you can actually communicate back and forth and it's not a one-way street. I've had an experience recently where I was shopping for a car and it was very much a one-on-one experience. And I'll be honest, we get to know the salesperson one-on-one. We almost got to the point where, we talked about our kids and we shared some personal stories, and there was a real trust piece that went back and forth. And And we really did feel that, they had our back, we had their back. Now, that might be in a bit of a stretch and an exaggeration, and not everybody's going to have that same experience. But I believe that's a big part of it. Having that transparency and that feeling that you can trust what you're asking them and that they're going to tell you the truth. And the focus on that is clearly building, and it's up and coming. That's something that the dealerships are trying to build, trust, and that one-on-one experience. The last thing you want to do is that snake oil salesman. They kind of give you the fast talk, and then out the door they kick you out with all kinds of scams and extras they sold you, and you just feel like you got greased. Nobody wants that. The salespeople don't even like to feel good about doing that, and certainly the buyers like you and I don't want any part of that. So they're trying to shift that whole attitude from what we've known in the past from the dealership experience. The second part to that is creating a more welcoming experience. I can't tell you how many times I've drove through a car lot and I'm not even out of that. I want to take a look at, of an SUV. I remember just recently I went to a Dodge dealership and I was ready to jump out. I wanted to go take a look at a vehicle. I was slow rolling through the lot, and I didn't even barely have the vehicle in park, and I had two sales guys coming from opposite directions charging me, and I felt, wow, this pressure. Nobody wants that. And that's what they want to do, is create a more welcoming experience, one that's they're available for you, but they're not over pressuring you. One that they feel welcome. You can walk in the dealership, people are friendly, they're not giving you attitude, and you're not being pushed into a corner to buy some junk that you never even wanted or signed up for. So they're trying to focus on this idea of being more welcoming and more committed to the customer experience, concierge service, offer a beverage, show you around, say, hey, look, I'll be over here. Instead of putting the fast talk and pressure tactics, they'd rather take a slightly passive approach, say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and then say, if you need anything, I'll be over here. If you need a water, let me know. And that approach is the new approach, the focus on trying to get customers feeling more cozy, more comfortable in the dealership without being pushed out with aggressive sales tactics. The third sub-point to that is the integration of technology. I mean, nothing worse than pulling out a mountain of paper, having the struggles, having those conversations, having to sign all kinds of things, wait for a week, deal back and forths. Your insurance company only opens these hours, the banks are only open these hours, the dealerships only open these hours. Having a system where you can do a credit check, where you can do your banking, where you can sign the paperwork and do it all with your cell phone just makes life so much easier. And the integration with processes now are in which so much easier, it's quicker, more streamlined, and they're trying to continually enhance the applications and the streamlining of this process is to help you in and out the door within one quick movement. Makes it easier for you, less stressful, less messing around. And the dealerships are trying to make it easier. Of course, it does make their work and life easier as well. But if there's less stress and anguish for the buyer, they're certainly trying to focus on that. More integration of streamlined processes with applications just makes life a lot simpler for everybody. And there's a heavier focus to that than there ever once was, where they used to show up with a mountain of paper. You had to sign your Herbie Hancock 100 times from Sunday before you even walked out the door. Now, another major change that you're starting to find in the automotive dealership space or the automotive industry, and you're finding it actually all over in a different industry, and that's the use of technology throughout. We're finding a lot more of that, of course. Things like chat bots, when you're having troubles and you're shopping online, and that little, hi, my name's John. If you have any questions, please ask me and I'll help you out. These little chat bots that come up and you can click on them if you're not sure where to look. It just helps guide you. These little AI features within a lot of these websites just help guide you through the process so it's not such a daunting experience. And while some people find it very easy to whiz through their cell phones and their computers, not everybody's in the same space. And these little chatbots and some of this AI just helps things along. Another point is the advanced data analytics, looking for statistics, factoids. I already mentioned about this already. Nothing worse than just seeing this big plethora list of vehicles that fall within your basic criteria. An SUV, mid-size, maybe as hybrid. Okay, great, that narrows it down to 40 different vehicles. Now what? Well, you probably want something that's reliable. You want to know how long it's been around, maybe when the end of production, how many recalls it has, how many failures you've seen, how many customer complaints. NHTSA is a classic example. The recalls, customer complaints, you can find all that information. But having a lot of these features and applications integrated in your shopping experience just makes life a lot easier. You can also check on things like Car Gurus, great websites like that you can shop down, you can nail right into your specific geography, your dealership level, and you can literally look how many days that particular truck or SUV or car has been on the lot, how much it's come down in price, whether it's a good buy, whether it's a bad buy, is it the median, is it too high, is it too low? All those facts are in there and they're all available. And having that technology on your hand and giving those facts and those numbers helps you make a more concerted decision, a decision based on numbers, facts, and reality, not just poof and the romance that you have of that vehicle. And then you get home and you never realize that, wait a minute, the car I just bought has 18 recalls behind it. Now I'm going to spend more time in the dealership checking this in for repairs. You don't want that. So ultimately having that information at your fingertips right here just makes life a lot easier for everybody, and it's just far less stressful. So they're trying to integrate all those facts. Again, I use sites like Car Gurus, absolutely amazing site to get your basic statistics and helps you through your shopping experience. And the dealerships know that. And that's why they're integrating more of those facts and features. And more great technology that you'd find is augmented reality or virtual reality tech as well. Isn't it great to see those 3D renderings of that car that you're shopping for? Isn't it nice to do a 360 look inside, try different wheels, different colors, different options? It's wonderful to have that on our fingertips. You're going to see more and more of that. Better AI systems, better augmented reality, better technology that's going to look sharper, crisper, cleaner. You've already seen it on almost every manufacturer is doing it today. But these systems are only going to get better, sharper, and easier to use as time goes on. And we're going to see a lot more of that just to help you with your overall buying experience. It's going to give you a summation of your features, your options, give you a total. And as well, right now, what it can do is basically sends it to your local dealership and they'll write you a quote. They'll give you a ballpark quote and they'll give you a hard estimate. They'll even get that vehicle in you. You can actually basically go through it, build your own, and get that vehicle sent directly almost to your home. So having this technology on hand just makes it so easy. You don't even have to deal with the dealerships all that often. And the reality is we've seen this. It's been proven out with companies like Tesla. You can pretty much build your own, although they've reduced the amount of types of different features and differentiation that you can make from different models. They don't allow a lot of modifications and different, unique appeal, but they do give you options to make your changes online and then basically order it just as is. And it'll even tell you when you anticipate or expect your delivery date. So it's just a wonderful place. And the dealerships are realizing the simpler they make it for the buyer, the easier they'll sell a car. But from the buyer's experience, if we can get a car easily and avoid all that stress and anguish and back and forth and noise with the salespeople and their games, and then they got to go to the manager and say, hey, my manager says this, when in reality it's just noise and smoke and mirrors. The bottom line is the less of that back and forth noise that you have to deal with, the happier everybody is. If you can just get in, get out, you know what the sticker price is, you deal off of that. If you like your price, you walk out and it's a thumbs up. So that does, of course, bring us to the next topic, which is the actual future of these car dealerships. I mean, we spoke of some of the things that are changing, that have changed, and they are evolving and getting even more involved. But there's three other major elements that we're looking to think about for the future of car dealerships, things that we will see major changes in as the future comes down the road in car dealerships and what that whole model looks like. And we want to talk about those three elements because that's what you signed up for here, right? There is, of course, an emergency of subscription-based services, iCloud-based services. We see much more of that. There is a huge potential right now for the dealership model to transition from a sales and service and parts to more of a service and parts, and the sales component might be pushed off just to the dealer, just to the manufacturer level. And of course, the importance of staying ahead of the customer's needs and demands. And we know this is a constant change. We don't know what we don't know, and things are constantly changing. But at the end of the day, learning how to learn, adapt, and adjust. I mean, we see a lot of manufacturers realizing that they're hard priced, they're hard dollars on some of their prices, and they're jacking up MSRPs. And then they think that's the end all be all. But what they don't realize is if they're not flexible when market conditions change, that they have to be on the ball and be willing to adapt and change at the market conditions. Those are the things that a lot of these dealerships are learning as we go in the future of car dealerships. So one of the future elements is that subscription-based models and mobility services. Mobility services is wonderful, isn't it? Roadside assistance. I've even had car dealers, with cars that you've driven as part of the package, if you have a failure at home, they'll come pick it up and they'll leave a reasonable facsimile on your driveway with the keys with you. And so ultimately, that's a nice service to have a vehicle that's just like yours, ready to go, fueled up, or in this many cases, I've seen Teslas dropped off, and then you don't miss a beat. And it takes the total inconvenience off your plate. Subscription-based services as well, we've been starting to hear about that. Companies like BMW sort of started that space where, they'll have all the equipment, the modules, the features, the wiring on board, but they're charging you a little extra. There's going to be increased charges. You want heated seats? Well, you have to pay $13 a month to get your heated seats. You want navigation? It's updated constantly, but that's going to cost you $18 a month. All these features now, even though they're built in, integrated, and the hardware is installed, you're going to see more and more and more of these iCloud-based and subscription-based services on board. Now, most people are hating it, and I'm not a personal lover at all. Some people like subscriptions because it's in and out. But the way I see this, I bought the car, it has the hardware, I want it, I paid for it, that's mine. Why should we have to pay for that? But be prepared, because those are things that are changing and evolving. We're seeing more of this happening. Now, companies like Volvo started it, and they realized people weren't buying the cars because of that. They start to backtrack. You're going to see sort of ebbs and flows in that market space. But the bottom line is be prepared for more subscription-based services, more mobility services, and ultimately that's a major change. It's going to be more of a pay-as-you-go type of a process, and there's going to be much, much more of that as we go. Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, that seems to be a way of the future. It's another way for a lot of these OEMs and dealers to extract a little extra cash out of our hard-earned wallets. The second point is how these dealerships now are going to be primarily a hub for maintenance, service, repairs. We've seen this, and I had a neighbor that had a Tesla. His Tesla died. He couldn't do anything about it. The little Tesla vehicle shows up, a little van where they service it right on your driveway. So that idea, that concept of, having these portable service units, or even the service department at that localized dealership, but not necessarily selling the product, we're going to see much more of that. We've seen a lot of pushback with Ford trying to sell to customers. Of course, the local vendors don't love that very much because they're losing a mass amount of work. And, even though the majority of their profits come from sales and service after service work, the point is that's a big part of their business. And without the sales side, they're losing a pile of money. We've seen it with Volkswagen and the Scout. They want to sell those direct to customers as well. And that's not boding very well for the Volkswagen vendors and the individual dealer networks. They're not happy about that. But these are things that are going to be evolving with time. There's been so much talk, so much pushback, and this is going to be something of the future. You're going to see more and more of this as they prove it out. It removes the middle person and allows more profits for the end user, for sure, for the OEM, and certainly gives more working margin for the OEM to sell to the individual buyers like you and I. But ultimately, that takes the dealer out of the picture. Well, the dealer's not going to love that, and it's going to be a legal battle in many cases. It's going to be some pushback. But with time, I would expect, not suspect, but expect to see many more of these typical OEMs going more with the direct-to-customer selling experience and utilizing more of the service side just for the local dealerships and their houses. That's realistically more what you're going to see, and that's a growing evolution of the industry as we know it today. And the third part is just staying ahead of the customer needs and demands. We know that without being flexible and adaptable, dealerships will not succeed. We're seeing the problems. Nissan is struggling to stay afloat. They've got 12 to 14 months, and specifically, even with Honda backing them up, who knows? Time will tell. A lot of these dealers, if they're not staying with the market conditions, Stellantis, they're losing major market share because they're not following what the demands of the buyers are. They're doing their own thing, forego what anybody wants. And so they're starting to feel the pinch. Volkswagen, same problem. They got ahead of the game, too far ahead of the curve into electrification. They thought they would be smart and get ahead of it. But in the meantime, they pushed themselves out of the bubble, and now they're struggling to stay afloat. Unfortunately, sales are drastically down for Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche. They're all failing. Dealerships are struggling. OEMs are closing factories. The frontline workers are losing jobs. It's not a very good place, but that's what happens when you're not relevant and you're not following the demands of the market. And these dealerships and the OEMs are going to have to find more adaptable ways to succeed. At the end of the day, that's the future of dealerships as we know it today. Hope you enjoyed it. Definitely want to check out that. The best cars of 25 and right there, the worst cars of 2025. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.